strap in for chapter 2 because this was just a tiny 32-page chapter, right? A lot of information here in this chapter. We are really introduced now to the Purake brothers. We have, of course, our friend Anomander. We have Anderist, and we have Silchus. So, of course, all all these guys are mentioned in the Book of the Fallen, and we're learning about them now at a much younger time in their lives. Not that they're young people here. Anderis seems to be the youngest, but they're well seasoned warriors and stuff already. But they are definitely not the characters that we encountered in the Book of the Fallen. Not at all. If you live for so long, you're not going to be the same person that you were. I'm not the same person I was when I was just 20 years ago, what have you. So you can't imagine the changes that a millennia would go through. But anyways, we're not introduced to them right away. Right away, we are introduced to this this character called Hun Rao, who is the who is he? I don't know. He's some sort of tutor to Osirk, young Osirk, and they are watching this painter named Caddis Spala, who's this real genius painter, I guess, and they're worried about irritating him while he's painting Osirk's father, who is Vatha Eurosander, and that's pretty important because that Vatha guy, he is the head of the I got the dramatis here. He is the head of Eurosander's Legion. It's named after him. So he's a big time commander, dude, and he was a big commander during the battle against the Forukan War, which I'm assuming still that it's against the Forkula Sale, maybe, but we'll see about that. But anyways, maybe not. It might be something else. I could be wrong about that. I don't really remember. But anyways, so this guy Cataspella is the most sought after painter of portraits in the whole realm of Corral Galen, and so they're worried about upsetting him. They're worried about the patience of Vatha Urasander, whether he can sit there for that long. And we get a little background that the realm would have fallen without this guy, and he saved the Tice people, and he also pursued. He had this punitive pursuit of the Jalarkan deep into the lands of the Northwest, which elevated his legendary status. Now, I'm not 100% sure who the Jalarkan are. I believe they do come up, though, in maybe in The God Is Not Willing, in some other parts of the novels of the Malazan Empire, and maybe the Book of Fallen as well. But I'm trying to remember. They'll come up again, so we'll get back to them eventually. So as he's painting away, the main thing that comes up while he's painting is the loss of the light while he's painting. He's worried about getting the right light and the right conditions, of course, for painting, and so the painter ends up yelling to the servants, "More candles! Curse the darkness, curse it!" And that's pretty significant because there is this theme of light versus dark going on here, especially with the Mother Darkness taking all the dark and swallowing up the light and sitting in her impenetrable darkness bubble. So that theme comes up again and again. And so Osirk and his tutor there, Hun Rao, they're talking about the compact of society and the need of reformation, and proof of that is plain enough in all the troubles. Now, so these troubles are mentioned home again. Um, and Hun Rao specifically mentions Dragonus. The troubles you're talking about begin and end with that upstart. He calls him an upstart, which is interesting, you know. Uh, so this is his point of view, of course. Um, he tells Osric ambition is a poison, and so he's assuming that Dragonus has this ambition, and and he also says she doesn't need a consort, referring to Mother Doc. She doesn't need a consort; she needs a husband, and he's proposing, of course, Urisander as that very husband. So that's some interesting viewpoint from this servant, really, tutor type of guy. Um, and they also mention he also mentions getting thrown into the streets. If they lose their status, to grub alongside the deniers, and that's in a capital D. That's going to come up later, so that's an important concept, that whoever these deniers are, they are not accepted into regular society, and they're perceived to be grubbing in the woods. All right, so um, yeah, and so that scene goes on, but this guy is as I don't know, as frustrating as he sounds sometimes, or whiny, he does really feel for Osric. He wants to be his friend. He wants to help him do good. So, um, and and one of the things that comes up is that the true irony in all this is the fact that Hunral's own Isgin line has more claim to the throne than anyone, even Mother Dark herself. No matter the past was, the past is past, and so on and so forth. But he's thinking about it. So it's interesting how this concept of Mother Dark, she's not quite the goddess that we see later on in the Book of the Fallen. At this point, she's definitely got some power, and she's definitely surrounded herself with this impenetrable darkness, and sucking the light out of the world, I guess. Um, so that, that's something to keep in mind, that she doesn't have quite the reverence that she does later on, when we read the Book of the Fallen series. All right. So then we go into another section that is actually more from Kataspala's point of view, and he has his point of view where he despises this notion of betters, station, and wealth, flimsy props thrown up in front of people, as flawed and as mortal as anyone else, and he's all about the art. And what's funny is he mentions that he realizes that people think he's irritable and angry, but that anger is actually directed at himself, in that impatience, and so other people don't understand that about him. Um, and what's interesting here, what really caught my attention, was he's trying to paint, and he has, when he's painting, he's really thinking a lot about his sister, Anesdia, his love for his sister, who he thinks is the truth of beauty, and he dreams of painting her, and he's never done so. Um, but he knows that he would fail to capture her, because it. He doesn't think he could capture how beautiful she is, and that's interesting, because that is in direct contrast to the the um, the IMAS, remember, in the Book of the Fallen, one of the Imass, got in a lot of trouble for painting somebody, for painting someone's likeness, and and it's interesting that this society, this viewpoint values capturing that in a painting. So I don't know, that just popped in my head for some reason. Um, and he mentions that portraits are traditional, and that tradition was the invisible army laying siege to the present. Interesting viewpoint. I like that line. That's a really cool line. Um, so yeah, what did the victory in tradition seek? To make the future no different from the past. Um, so that's something to think about. That's something to think about. I really like that stuff there. And this is his viewpoint, so it's not that he writes, not that he's right, right? Mother's dark's power grows, so we do that, and with that power, she is stealing the light from the world. And what future for an artist in all this darkness? I like that. I like that indeed. Yeah. So we move on here, and still, Urisander invites Karaspala to dinner without anybody else around. He wanted to speak to him in person, by himself, alone, and which is good for Karaspala because most of the time he's in the company of a bunch of other people and he's bored. Um, and they talk about he Kataspella talks about how he hates critics. Interesting, right? Um, and but the Lord says, well, you would deny the potential worth of constructive criticism. And then he says that depends. And so he he goes on this this rant, and they get into it, and then the word peaceful comes up again. But the main thing I underlined here was criticism is a form of oppression. Its intent is to manipulate both artist and audience by imposing rules on aesthetic appreciation. Curiously, its first task is to belittle the views of those who appreciate a certain work but are unable or unwilling to articulate their reasons for doing so. That's fair, right? Maybe. On occasion, of course, one of those viewers rises to debate, takes umbrage at being dismissed and being ignorant, at which points critics en masse descend to annihilate the fool. uh, which that's a little rough. Yeah. So, but on another level, it is the act of those in power in protecting their interests, those interests being nothing less than the absolute oppression through the control of personal taste. But about the opinions of those with no agenda beyond the aesthetic, I am interested. So he's talking about different kinds of critics, I guess. Um, yeah, very very interesting stuff there. I like the philosophizing over art that Erikson does there. Really. Moving on. Oh, jeez, we're only on page 40. All right. So then we get introduced to Anesia, who's the daughter of Lord Jane of House Annis. This is the sister that he was talking about, and it's this sister that is she's the one I think getting married. Believe it or not, yeah. And we come to find out that so we're introduced to her. We're introduced to Krill of House Durav, who's a hostage in this house, because that was like a traditional thing again, right? So he's a hostage in this house when he's been living there his whole life. He's actually, you can tell he's actually in love with Anesia, but he can't say that. He can't bring that forward. So we get his point of view for a little while, because he talks about the other meanings to the word hostage, and one's not codified into the law of tradition, and how tormented he is because he's not going to be able to show his love for this woman. That would be forbidden, and so And she is getting married to Andorus. So here we come to those guys. Andorus being the youngest brother of the Purake brothers, and so that's pretty cool. Um, they do mention hunting beasts a lot, in hunting these beasts called Ekala, which I'm equating to like deer or elk or something like that. And the Ekala are gone, and the hills are lifeless. So that reflects a theme that's going on here about this society that's kind of crumbling, and but nobody wants to see that, right? So then Hishtula is mentioned from another house, and she she's had relationships with the Purake brothers. Um, they're going to their father's grave, and they're discussing. This is Animander Rake's daddy, uh, and his father's name was Namander, and I believe that name comes up in the Book of the Fallen later on, and I think that's Rake's son in the Book of the Fallen. I'm not 100% sure about that, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong there. But it just sounds so familiar. Okay, so the heart thus broken has no strength and even less will, and but crawled away with a weak smile and welling eyes. I love that line. That was a great line. And they were talking about this woman Hish's old lovers, because she doesn't stick with them. One little fact here, it says Anamanda's sun-burnished face, the color of pale gold. Now, that does not fit with the description we get of him in the Book of the Fallen. So, obviously, he's changed quite a bit over the millennia. All right. So there's some writing on this gravestone of their father. Silt just wants to dig it up. He's a curious brother, and they debate about it. And then they say, "Oh, there's not enough time. The weather's turning bad," but he's hoping to glean something of their father's message to Mother Dark, and they don't know what that would be because it's written in Azath, Azathane. Yeah, how we can say that. And I found it very interesting that they can't interpret these things. I thought these guys knew everything, but obviously not. Anyways, Silchus Ruin's white face bore droplets and streaks of rain. So he's kind of like already alabaster looking, which in the Book of the Fallen he's kind of like a white dragon. So that's pretty cool. Let's see here. And Animander mentions the blood ever flows between us and ever shall, and that is our Father's greatest gift to us. I question marked that because I was like, that's interesting. Because we know that eventually these guys become dragons. And I didn't know if that meant something there. I didn't know. All right. Lots of stuff not to know in here. And they say peace will be our legacy. Not. All right. And these brothers, they seem to get along pretty well. They're not fighting like a lot of brothers do yet. So then we get introduced to Sparrow, who is a servant, and he's also a stone worker, and he feels envious because Animander has commissioned a special stone from this high mason, and this high mason is an Azathane himself, which is really cool. And he's a guy who's very strong in earth magic, and thus is able to work this stone. Yeah. So, one of the things that Sparrow brought up while talking to this Azathani, this high mason, was he says, "Is it not the high mason says, is it not unusual that you're not a hunter amongst the Teist?" And he says, "Oh, less so of late, as most of the beasts are slain and shall never return to our lands. It seems that our days of glorious hunting will soon be at an end." And I wrote at the bottom, wrong. But then they, right after that, on the next page, um, the mason says, "Let's hope the Teist don't return to the final prey left to them." And he says, "Why, each other, of course," right? So that would be tragic and prophetic. So this this high mason, not mage, mason, who has earth magic, is considered, is very well respected, high arts, and was considered almost equal to Animander himself in Mother's Dark's eyes. And so when he gets introduced to Animander, he says, "When commissioning this stone binds you yourself to the vow that will be made here." He's talking about the marriage vows. "And once this stone finds its place, the binding of the vow can never be broken. And should you fail in your love for your brother, in your loyalty, then even I cannot answer for the consequences." That was ominous, very ominous. So I started that, and Amanda doesn't like that. He's like, "Wait a minute, you cursing me or something?" And the high mason just says, "Hey, such potential exists in every gift and in its giving." So I was like, "Ooh, wow, that's this guy's serious, right?" So they argue for a bit. They argue back and forth, and finally, this this is great. This just was like, bam, aha moment, right? And Amanda asks for his name, and he says, "I am named Kaladin Brood." And I was like, yes. That was cool. um, yeah, and that's how the chapter ends. So that's the end of chapter 3, chapter 2. Sorry. So I probably won't get to chapter 3 till next week sometime, probably Monday, Tuesday. Probably won't finish that till then. Um, so yeah. Well, we got a good amount of reading done this week. I'm happy with my progress and taking it slow, and I'm really absorbing stuff. It's really fun. All right, with all this said,